great to be home.
When did we lose you?
When did you lose?
When did you leave Ireland?
Oh yeah, Ireland never lost me, but I'm about 20 years outside of Ireland now.
20 years.
Yeah.
Will you bring me back to September 14th, I think it was, when this historical moment was communicated internally, and what impact did it have on the company?
You mean in last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was phenomenal, really. It never ceases to surprise me, Patagonia, and I've been there 9 years. I didn't know it was going to happen because some people had to know it was going to happen, of course, to get everything together, and it was 2 years in the making. And you have to remember back to a couple of years back when Yvon Chouinard said to change the mission statement into "We're in business to save the home planet." And when that happened, you know, he said, "You're all smart people, go figure it out," because it was news to us. He actually didn't internally communicate it. It just said on a radio station one day, "We're in business to save our home planet." And then that led up to this, him thinking about, you know, we're still not doing enough, and I'm getting older. And they had a discussion that took 2 years as a family, him and his wife Melinda and their 2 children, and they wanted to figure a way out how to leave a legacy of Patagonia that stayed true to its purpose, even after they leave the planet. And they looked at all options, and then they came up with this one, which he loved, which was, you know, making Earth our only shareholder. And when that happened, it was announced, he wanted to announce it to the whole company first, before it went externally. And so we all connected online. He met with everybody in the US offices on site, and he explained to everybody himself why he was doing this and why it was so important, and why it was important for him to protect the DNA of Patagonia. And then in true old Patagonia style, we all went outdoors the next days to celebrate this news. So we didn't stay in our offices or our retail stores. We shut them down, and we spent time in nature, because that's what we're about. We're an outdoors company. We care about planet Earth. That's our mission, and that's what we did. And, you know, everybody was just filled with more pride, I guess, you know, and really respected that the Chouinard family are really staying true to the purpose of the company. And, you know, they could have sold the business off. They could have done many other things. They could have turned it into a nonprofit in terms of, you know, just a pure nonprofit. But what they did was try and devise something that was very unique. And he's always wanted to prove that you can do business and you can make a profit, but you can do good, and you can acknowledge that we extract from the planet Earth and that we can give back to planet Earth, you know. Our first mission statement says very transparently that we should cause no unnecessary harm, and that's because we realize we do cause harm. And there's always been that acknowledgement. So I think for him and for us, it was just this sort of acknowledgement that you can still do business. I think he wanted to really prove that point as well, that you can still make good product, you can still have a profitable, healthy business, you can grow responsibly, but you can now give all of our profits, those that are not reinvested back into the business, to planet Earth. And they did that by establishing the Patagonia Purpose Trust, which has 100% of the voting stock, and it's run and governed by the family. And then as part of that, they have the Holdfast Collective, which has no voting stock, but that is a non-profit in itself, and around $100 million per year is given to environmental crisis movements via this Holdfast Collective. And that's a separate entity to our company. So this all happened in September. We told our employees, and nobody was asking about, you know, do I have a job or not? It was like, wow, you know, just sort of more pride in the fact that we were doing this.
We spoke about ESG earlier on. We spoke about ESG, and this is an outlier. This is like an historical moment. You said it was radical. Well, you look for radical people. So it reflected the values of the organization very, very deeply. The conversation, I see Gillian French there, that she had around emotional connection. I was thinking of you, I was thinking of Patagonia during that conversation. How do you think you've created that sense of belonging when you look for radical people?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I think, Patagonia is no different from any other company. We still have to, think about and work hard at, creating that sense of belonging. It doesn't just magically happen. We have a very transparent and true purpose, but you need to always think about, and especially pre and post and during COVID, how does that evolve for the employee experience, and what does it take to really let these employees who work within our community thrive and really be connected to the mission. And I think part of that is during the recruitment process is to really sort of assess that, what are they looking for? Like, do they actually care about what we care about? Because we really care about this mission. And that's very important to us. And I think the way that we continue to, after we recruit and onboard people, is everything we do comes back to the outdoors and the earth. So all of our programs, whether it's people programs or indeed financial programs or supply chain programs, all of our processes and programs are connected by two things. Is this right by our community, and is this right by the people internally that we work with? And then I suppose thirdly is this lessening the impact on planet Earth? So in terms of the people space, we make sure that people are I suppose, we show them a wider range of academia, scientists, even artists, and there's wonderful work being done by artists in activist space. And what we do is we try and connect them outside of their jobs to all of the work being done in the environmental endeavors. We do a lot of storytelling, so we connect people through giving them tools through storytelling. We expect everybody in Patagonia to be our brand ambassadors. And that doesn't matter where you are in the organization. You are allowed to go out and speak on behalf of Patagonia with very limited sort of PR intervention, because I think we're comfortable enough that the sort of DNA and red thread runs throughout our organization. And what we stand for is very simply, being an outdoors company, trying to make the best product and trying to give back to planet Earth. And we create, people programs like the Earth University, which I was involved in developing. And that's about learning about how to grow, how to navigate, how to be a community member, and how to revolutionize, as part of your work within Patagonia. And, Patagonia, you talk about radical people. I think we're all radicals in that we're all trying to look at how we can get connected to impact and making a change in this world. And that's what Patagonia gives you. And this Earth University program is all done in nature, so it's not done in an office room. It's for all employees in Patagonia. And it's not about growth in the sense of your own personal growth. It's a time of inquiry and leaving you room for curiosity to explore and ask the big picture questions about what does growth mean? I mean, I work in a duality organization. So on one hand, it's a for-profit organization. We have salespeople, we have marketing, we have a bottom line to think about. And the other part is this true mission-centric organization. And that duality is hard to maneuver through. So Earth University helps us all, whether we're an accountant, a marketeer, a HR professional, connect into that culture and asking those big questions about what does growth mean? How should a company grow its profits? How large of a profit should a company become? And also connecting in with activism. How do you find your voice, and how do you act on behalf of the planet in whatever role you do within Patagonia? Because a lot of people who are not in the mountaineer marketing space or the surfer or whatever in Patagonia, they sometimes feel a little bit intimidated about how their role connects in with our work. And, by turning up to Patagonia, you're part of our mission. By being with us, you're doing your job. And we really just look at platforms and support you through storytelling and becoming the best voice you can be in whatever role you are in our company. And that's how we kind of nurture Patagonia. I mean, we also ensure people get out and have days off to take action on behalf of the planet. We have a bail policy. You know, it's the first time ever in my career I worked on a bail policy to get our employees out of jail if they had got arrested for environmental action. I mean, this is the first time I dealt with lawyers coming up with a bail policy. I've never worked in an organization like this. We had criminal lawyers to help you talk through what happens to you if you get arrested. I mean, this is the kind of dualities and healthy tension points we work through every day. So normal operating business, and then these really radical acts, you know, going down to, with my in-house lawyer, to ensure that our then GM, who's now the CEO of Patagonia, didn't get his ass in jail, basically, because you know, we were going to figure out how did we get the American out of a Dutch jail. You know, these kinds of things are some of the things that go on in Patagonia every day. And just, you know, it's just amazing to see this activism spirit, you know, and it's very nurtured, it's very accepted. We have lunch talks every day. Last week when I was in the office, we had a river scientist talk to us for an hour and a half, a river scientist. I mean, I was in awe for an hour and a half listening to how actually a river should be. And the reason why we had a river scientist is Patagonia is working with the Albanian government to save the last 600 kilometers of free-flowing river in the Balkans from being dammed and saving biodiversity on behalf of all of us. I have a son, you know, to think that I work for an organization that might be part of somehow in even a small way saving that for future generations is amazing. So our work in conservation, we allow people to take field trips to the places where you know, we have campaigns and we're trying to conserve land. We have worn wear tours where we're repairing and recycling. All of our employees go on those. Our onboarding is all done in nature. In the Netherlands, we bring people through a mud walk, so they're on a boat, they're in water. I'm dragging employees in the water with our backpacks on top of our heads as we onboard people. And this is all about teamwork and being in nature. So everything comes back to, yes, we work hard, but we bring everything back to the outdoors, and we care about the outdoors. And when you have that red thread running through, you know, our supply chain, you know, with all of our fair trade and all of the wonderful work our supply chain people do, it naturally comes alive, yeah.
The word awesome, the word awe is overused, isn't it? Like, I'm listening and I'm genuinely, are you feeling the same thing? Are you feeling something really unique? Like, isn't it so different? And I'm just reflecting on the earlier conversations, Evelyn, around what we're trying to achieve in technology, authenticity, purpose. And I just nearly see it as being vacuous compared to what you've just described.
Yeah, but you know, look, we're a very humble organization.
I feel that.
And, you know, I also get uneasy when, you know, with respect to someone like you says that, because we don't want to be seen as, you know, some pure, everything is right, because, you know, we have our ups and downs, you know, and another thing that came out of the last few years is, you know, George Floyd was murdered, Black Lives Matter happened. We're an outdoors company. And we really had to take a look at ourselves. And when we took a look at ourselves, it was a sort of a really kind of, yeah, it was a hard moment for us, because then we realized also that the outdoor space that we play in and work in and love is not a very welcoming space from a diversity perspective. And this is when we got to real radical work ourselves in taking ourselves through an anti-racism journey of education internally, and also looking at our community in the outdoors and seeing how we could make a difference there, because we're always about the community, grassroots environmentalism. But this time we worked with other outdoors companies like the North Face, like Arc'teryx, and in the UK in 2021 we set up Opening Up the Outdoors, and our commitment to that as a non-profit is that we would work hard to ensure that our voice and our support is given to opening up the outdoors, to creating a safe, inclusive and equitable place for people to play in, because it is not. And that was a learning for us. So while we're, very proud to be, I hope, humbly said, a teacher to people in terms of how you can do business in a good way and make profits, we also have our learning journeys as well,
Seems to me, I'm thinking about that red thread you mentioned. And we also talk about purpose. You mentioned your purpose it's very clear. It has been consistent. Claude mentioned consistency. We were talking about culture yesterday. There's been like absolute consistency and an evolution in your purpose to a very historical moment, I guess. But I'm also listening to some of the practices that you have internally, your Earth University, your bail policy. Is that a bit crazy, isn't it? Having a bail policy. But it's something that's so unique, and it makes tons of sense to me as you describe it. So you have all of these structures in place that enable and support people to express their sense of that purpose, is what I'm kind of getting a sense of from you. But I'd like to understand from a leadership perspective, is there anything unique in Patagonia that realizes that expression of your people?
In what sense?
How would you describe, say, the leadership style within Patagonia?
Oh, that's a good one. I think the leadership style is a very sort of human-centered one. I think it's a very empathic one, and it's a very authentic one. I think it's also a very ambitious one. We really, there's sort of this two sides. So this wonderful, caring bunch of people who really, most people play in the spaces that we either provide product to or we're trying to save. But they're fiercely competitive about Patagonia being the best that they can be. So again, there's, I suppose, a duality in our leadership. And this duality keeps me not bored, hence why I'm there for 9 years. But I would say Patagonia is probably also, I think you asked me the other day about, is it a little bit of a cult? Is it hard for people? And I would say it's probably my experience of it coming in from, I worked in pure sort of corporate world for 20 odd years, or I can't remember years anymore at this age. But I worked for a long time in corporate life and left it and worked in NGOs for a bit and then came back to corporate life. And Patagonia, when I joined it, it sort of has this duality, and I kind of had to unlearn everything I thought I knew in a way, So it allowed me to unlearn, and I'm a huge believer in unlearning. And I think it's a systems thinking thing. So in Patagonia, you look at things from the long-term lens. We're not really short-term people. Everything has to be, how does this impact the environment? How does this impact the community we live and work in and play in? And so it's long-term thinking. It's about how do you change the system rather than just trying to put sticky plasters on stuff. And I've just had to unlearn and rethink about how to do programs or people practices based on that. And I think when you come in as a leader, I think you just need to be a very sort of courageous and curious person to really thrive in that space. And authenticity is our number one thing, We're a very down-to-earth group of people. The dogs are in the office, if they could get the cats and the owls and the birds in the wood. There's people jumping off bridges, they're up and down with no shoes on their feet. It's just a very radical environment as well. So sometimes that's not for everybody, but it also means that we're authentic in the working environment, in the leadership style, and in the programs. And actually that's what all companies, whatever your purpose is what is the purpose of your purpose, and making those red threads happen and run throughout your organization. You don't have to be Patagonia, but make sure you have a purpose, and whatever that authentic purpose is, work your programs around that,
I feel nothing but authenticity in everything you've just said. Like this, like it runs deep with you clearly, like it really clearly does. And to unlearn something, is there a big lesson in that, I think? If we are trying to think differently, and if we are trying to be authentic, there probably is a process of unlearning, like Eddie Wilson said. Like, we don't want to be the next Procter & Gamble. No offense to the 3 guests from Procter & Gamble. But that's really interesting to me. Can I maybe flip this conversation on its head? What were the challenges to this decision for you within the people function? Was there any negative impact of this decision?
Yeah, no, and that's a good question. I mean, and I will deal with that also very honestly. I mean, I think the first few days was sort of, oh, wow, this is amazing, and Earth is now our shareholder, and, just being able to go home and tell your family and friends this was amazing. But then, in usual sort of Yvonne Chouinard and family style, it's a bit like when he made the announcement that we're in business to save our home planet, you're smart people, go figure it out. Even though it took 2 years to build this new organizational structure and design, it was kind of a case again of, well, now you're going to have a nonprofit in your entity, and you're going to have philanthropists working with you, and you're going to have executive directors and a whole different, work stream. You go figure it out as well. So that, and we didn't have much time, and we're still figuring it out. And yes, then there were questions like, and we're still working through these, like, well, how do we know as employees, that's great that you're going to still continue to save planet Earth, but you also need to make sure that you're working hard on our behalf as the internal community. So what does that mean if all of the profits are going back into this new collective? And, that's a very good question to ask, but the thing is, the profits go into this collective once we have ensured that we've reinvested in the business. And of course, reinvesting in the business means also taking care of our people as well. So we're working through those things. We don't have everything sorted. It's an evolving journey. But overall, the challenges really has been sort of just bandwidth and trying to figure this out, and organizationally looking at, how we design, sort of those 2 parallels working with each other as the new Holdfast Collective and that group of people, which are a lot of outsider people, as I say, working in the area of philanthropy. And how do we get our employees involved in some of that grant making and decision making as well? So just more work for us to do, and figuring it out in challenges, but nothing that we can't figure out together.
Well, power to you, and again, it's true, Evelyn, humility to say we figure it out together. So even the language you use, and you said you guys practice, you teach storytelling, you've brought me on a journey, and I'm sure Evelyn has brought all of us on a journey. My final question to you, Evelyn, we can't all be Patagonia, is the truth, and I know you know that. What can we do to become more responsible capitalists from what you've seen and what you've learned in your journey in Patagonia?
Well, I don't think organizations have a choice in this anymore. The younger generation are voting with their feet. Paul Pullman and the Net Positive Employee Barometer a few weeks ago published a report of 4,000 people in the UK and the US. And half of those young millennials will quit jobs. It's called conscious quitting, if their values don't align up to the company values. And people care about what's happening in society. And they want, and it's not just your employees, of course, it's your customers as well. So you need to think with the 2 hats on. But I think, companies just really have to figure out a way of hearing that employee voice in your company, taking note of it, and just acting with authenticity about whatever your company purpose is. So, don't talk out of two sides of your mouth. Take action and deliver on what your purpose is, and create that consistency that employees really feel that you are acting for more than just shareholder value return alone, because people don't want to do that anymore. I've seen even in Patagonia, young people leave us, and we're a good company to work for, because they want to go off and do regenerative farming, and they want to really save the planet. So you need to think about ways of engaging your employees in your purpose, that they feel it is authentic, there is transparency, and they have a voice at the table. Because if you keep ignoring that, well, I think you're going down a very slippery path.
Evelyn, thank you so much for sharing that. That was truly fascinating and truly awesome. And power to you and power to your colleagues.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Evelyn Doyle. Thank you, Evelyn.